Hello, everyone. This is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative take about the world around me. Feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out. 2 ways to do this: email, YouTube, and also I was reaching the end with the Paramount Plus with promoting my podcast, The Harboring Light. You hear the Harboring Light is running up pretty soon, so let's see and listen for that, and I also have visuals with my ad that's running on different audio platforms, podcast platforms, for instance, Pandora, Amazon Music, Spotify. You hear my voice with that, promoting the show. And I appreciate all of y'all. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. Thank you. All right, so I'm on a lot of different podcast formats, so it won't be hard to find me. And then, it's very interesting, and I appreciate that too. The other day I just typed in the Harboring Light, and sure enough, it popped right up. So even if type it in Google, it'll come right up. So, topical choice here. We're running with the theme of spring and renewal. So this time, I am going to focus on cherry blossoms, its symbolism, and its impact on Japanese culture and culture and spreading out to American culture, just culture at large. Here we go. So, it's quite interesting how this all came about with wanting to decide this as a show topic. So, I find it quite interesting when, for instance, make a long story short, One Piece is turned into a live action, and Netflix, it's one of those things where certain characters, I appreciate them not going too extreme with radicalizing the characters and changing out the characters. Just like, for instance, such disgrace with with the Harry Potter series that I think it was through HBO or something, and changing Snake into a black man. And that's just very disrespectful, because it was already hard enough, with trying to find someone in the same caliber with, God rest his soul, with the actor who portrayed him and all of that. Because, he has just a rich tapestry of characters that he was really good about fine-tuning it. And so to strip it away by placing on ridiculous politics to it, and then all this whatever agendas, it takes away from the richness of the story. So moving on to One Piece. So, I saw One Piece but a long time ago. And when me and my husband, when we were newly in our relationship, and he knew that I liked stories about adventure and, sea nautical stuff, which hence the Harboring Light here. And, the arc of Tony Chopper is really, really interesting, especially how it does really, that's what's so great about mangas and Asian cultures with, there's different continents within Asia. Manga is really the beacon, or the measure of tool, the train station here to get out really in-depth ideas here. And so going on to the disposition that Tony Chopper had, Tony Chopper is a symbol of the aspects of never giving up hope, and so was the doctor who he had a strong bond with, and to the point of saying that, Tony Chopper is my son. And for those who don't know all that much about One Piece, Tony Chopper is a reindeer, and it's such a thing in the story where it's a special kind of fruit, and if you eat the fruit, it gives you pretty much magical power. So this enabled Tony Chopper to speak and to transform forms to become, this big monster-bound looking beast here. So with that said, the doctor and who he was, which really they had a one of those complicated dispositions of friendship and understanding, and one of those sometimes cruel to be kind of ideas, with the aspects of getting him to understand that you have to be your own person, right? And so the doctor, he always emphasizes the nothing is impossible, and he tried to instill that in him in his own way with Tony Chopper. And the symbolism that they used with the island in which Tony Chopper and his doctors from is really impactful into how the cherry blossom is seen as a tranquil piece of reflection and renewal, for the most part, throughout different cultures. So with that said, let's get into the aspects of talking about the symbolism and the impact of cherry blossoms. Alright, so, and of course, as I always say, these sources will be provided for you in this episode, okay? Alright, so let me pull it right on up for you. Okay, so alright, so I'm going to start out with this. Alright, so this is by Thirst, right? Alright, so the article entails cherry blossoms, spiritual meaning, and symbolism across cultures. So let's explore the spiritual meaning of cherry blossoms and their rich symbolism. So this was originally written in 2024 which makes a whole lot of sense for it to be after Christmas here. Alright, so cherry tree blossoms and thinking about it in a nature spiritual way here. Those flowers captivate people worldwide with their short-lived yet breathtaking beauty. So if you have ever seen the unique sight with your own eyes, you'll know it's no wonder it's captured the hearts of men. So today they're going to explore the spiritual meaning of those flowers across different cultures and what impact they had on our view of spirituality. Alright, so cherry blossoms in the life of Japanese people. So we can talk about those flowers. We cannot talk about it, which is apropos. You cannot talk about cherry blossoms without mentioning where it originated, which is Japan. So, because if there is one country known for flowers, it is Japan, and that's duly noted. All right, so these flowers are, I'll do my best to pronounce this, the sakura Sequa, as they are known, are slightly interwoven with the culture of this country. So the sakura is technically an umbrella term for the variety of trees that bloom for a certain period in spring. So this time window is usually between late March and early April, and it also includes the blossoming of cherry trees. It's a short phrase that nevertheless has a very huge impact. Okay, I'll be right back. I see my baby. Piper, come here, sweetie. Piper, come here.
No, Mama.
Come here. No, I got it. Let me.
I can't go on that.
Okay. All right, so let's get back into it here. All right, so it says a symbolism of fleeting moments. So the spiritual symbolism of those flowers is actually rooted in Buddhist philosophies, which is widespread in Japan. So mono no aware is a Japanese concept that roughly translates to the pathos of things and speaks to the core of the cherry blossom's spiritual meaning. This idea highlights both of the beauty of life and the transcendence, and how impossible is not to prevent the upcoming change. So when a sakura blooms, it reminds us that life is brief, and so are our experiences, from the happiness to the most painful aspects of life. It might be a very, melancholy sentiment, but what it really calls for is to cherish each passing moment in our lives. So the sakura also marks the beginning of the spring and a time of rebirth. So a cold winter is gone and the delicate flowers come out of the branches. They breathe life into the world and fill it with vibrant colors. So to many in Japan, this represents hope. Each bloom is a symbol of new beginning. There is the events like the Hanamai, so the flower viewing that celebrates this idea. So people come together under the blooming trees to reflect on their lives and connect with each other in nature. Cherry trees bloom in Chinese culture. Now these trees also have a special place in China. It is intertwined in the unique significance of the country's history and philosophy. In Chinese tradition, these plants often speak of love and feminine beauty. They represent both a woman's elegance and resilience. So this connection can be traced to Chinese art and poetry, where the blooms appear very frequently as metaphors for romantic love and admiration. Besides love, cherry blossoms also stand for vitality. The way the flowers come into bloom after a long winter reminds us that it's possible to overcome challenges. And also take on your battles and believe that there is also a better tomorrow, for there's always a moment to treasure. So the symbolism across Asia. While Japan and China are most widely associated with cherry blossoms, there are also other Asian countries where these are also carried very deeply and very significant into the culture. So, for example, Korea. Cherry flowers signify purity. They are also the center of attraction during spring, just like in Japan. So many believe that the bloomings of these trees is the perfect time for contemplation. In India, these flowers have found a place of local traditions. Their vibrancy tied beautifully into the Indian culture and the celebrations of beauty and generous bounties of nature. So there's a cherry blossom festival also that takes place annually in the Ceylon, the capital of Meghalaya. So cherry flowers and their significance on Western countries. Alright, so while these trees originally come from the region of Asia, their own beauty has captured hearts in the West as well. And, for instance, in Washington, it's a deep-hearted, a lot of associations with the cherry blossom. And it makes a lot of sense, because there's capital and our governmental structure. So, that is apropos with the aspects of using the cherry blossoms as a reminder and a symbol of renewal, and the always have an understanding that it's always another day and then things can change. All right, so here we go. Western artists and poets have explored these themes of being fragile and the impertinence in their works. So the short time of blooming is a poignant reminder of how precious life is. This symbolism is a reminiscence of the Western idea of carpe diem. So both especially which urge to seize the day and to appreciate each moment. So today the appeal of those flowers is extended to modern art and design. Their appeal transcends cultural boundaries and inspires individuals on personal levels. So if you want to chat, they say if you want to chat more, you can go ahead. And I'll, like I said, I will have these this link for you to check in. And if you are interested, feel free to.
This old.
Huh?
This old peep.
No, it's not. But you just don't do that, okay? All right, so I'm gonna give some thoughts before I get into a second source here. So, as I mentioned about the aspects of cultural and spiritual meaning, and how spirituality, faith, and divinity is rooted a lot in nature. And so it's really interesting when you go to different cultures and you see how these factors play out into their society, right? And so the fact that in the Japanese culture, the Asian culture, how very integral and how very delicate the aspects of nature and faith is interwoven into the culture. It spells a lot of ideas of how people view and disposition themselves in nature. And that really is very interesting when you go on and think about the aspects of yourself and your awareness of how you are in nature. And so on the flip side of that, on the other side of that can be exploited too, because it's unfortunate. America is the only offender of this, but there's a lot of people who they just want to be self-righteous and convoluted and say and conceal themselves behind something that's actually good and turn it into something that's just a megaphone for them to scream and yell, because they don't really have anything else to do but to tear down and destruct. And that's something to pay attention to. So with this said, I'm going to get into some more facts about this. So I'm going to actually go on to the cherry trees and Japanese folklore, because Japanese folklore is really, I think, apropos and to more of a traditional awareness of something. All right, so let me do this right quick here. All right, here we go. All right, so this is from Brooklyn Botanical Garden, from the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. Okay, so this was originally written in 2016, April 25th, by Brian Funk. So cherry trees is entitled Cherry Trees in Japanese Folklore. So Japan is a country rich, again, as I mentioned earlier, in Buddhist and Shinto legends and mythology about nature. Let me say that again. Cherry trees in particular have special significance, as the cherry trees in Brooklyn consider some of the interesting cultural associations of these trees and their blossoms you can learn about a few of Japanese revered, folklore, you know, uh, mystical side, you know. In general, the chakra, cherry blossoms, represent the impermanent nature of life. Not only is the beauty of the flower short and sweet, the trees themselves are also that. But there are contradictory meanings as well. So cherry blossoms symbolize both birth and death, beauty and violence. There are this is a central motif in the Japanese worship of nature, but they have also historically signified the short but colorful life of the samurai. The chakra is also adorned which was also adorned in the plains of the Kawasaki pilots during World War II, to be exact. Alright, so sacred trees are often a theme in supernatural Shinto or Buddhist folklore tales. So spirits, or the kami, are said to inhabit old or beautiful trees called the kodmama. So there are hundreds of these trees in Japan. And to denote their sacredness, they are encircled with large twist ropes called the shamarwana. And it is said that the misfortune will come to anyone who cuts down or otherwise mistreat one of these trees. So milk nurse cherry. So many komama cherries are stop, baby, don't do that, okay? Some are very potent to the flower on particular anniversaries. So, like that of the samurai's ritualistic, suicide, or to possess people's souls. So one of the most famous cherry tree myths is that of the Uba Sooka, or the milk nurse cherry tree. It is said to blossom on the anniversary of the death of the devoted wet nurse who gave her soul and life to save the child she cared for. She lives on in the form of this tree. So the turn of the century Irish scholar and the writer of the, forgive me, I do my best to pronunciation, it's the Lafcadio Hearn, brought the story to the English-speaking world in his classic collection of folklore retellings, so entitled Stories and Studies of the Strange Things. So cherry trees of the 16th day. Another ancient cherry tale concerns the ghosts of unlonely samurai, and this district of the Wekwari, in which dwelled an elderly samurai who had outlived his children and all of his other loved ones. As he grew older and lonelier, his comfort was the ancient cherry tree in his garden. He had played under the tree as a child, and it had been in his family for generations. Stop! I'm sorry about that. I told you no, baby. One summer, the tree too died. The samurai grew more despondent, and on the 16th day of the next January, he committed the harakiri beneath the tree. So his ghost entered the tree and made it bloom. And ever since, it is said to bloom again on January 16th. Alright, so the stone splitting cherry. Alright, I'm going to end on by saying this. So not so much of a piece of folklore as a remarkable natural phenomenon. So the revered tree is called the Ishirahi Zaukara, or stone splitting tree. And it can be seen in the Morocco in Japan. So this tree took root in a small crack in a boulder and eventually grew large enough to split the boulder in half.
Mama,
Hold on, baby. Thus, the beauty and the power of tree.
Right now.
Well, we're fixing to go in. And let me get back to this. So the beauty and the power of the tree was able to shatter the stone. Today, no, I am not. You can say goodbye to everybody when I'm done. Want to? Yeah. Just gotta wait there and be patient. Be your cute self, okay? So today, the tree is 400 years old. All right, so I'd like to know what you all think. And I think, this is a really good telling and really good way to wrap things up about the aspects of how very calming and tranquil it is to know that these factors go on in nature, and how, essentially nature is all about renewal and things take its place and matter in the world. And that can also seep itself into reflecting how, we move about in our day to day. And the cherry blossom is a really good symbol of that. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harvard Line. You want to say bye to everybody?
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, so tune in.
Bye-bye.
All right,
Do your podcast with my mama.
All right, so tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care of
Oh,
it.
bye-bye.
Say bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye for now. Do your podcast with my mama.
You did it.